your place for the latest hip-hop from today and yesterday. It might be hard for some of us to believe, but hip-hop is pretty young in comparison to other music genres. The genre has always made a point of ushering the new, and now a lot of the older classics are having to get used to that fact. Even as the textbook definition of an OG, Jay-Z has struggled to hold down a relevant musical output just like a lot of other older rappers. The key difference, though, is that Jay's always had his business portfolio to fall back on, which I think has made him an easier target in the eyes of a lot of other people who have been dissatisfied with his later work. And I can't say I really disagree with them either. His last effort, Magna Carta Holy Grail, felt like it was treading some really shallow water, and it didn't really have any messages or sonic innovations either. To put it bluntly, this album really brought to light the staleness and the lack of purpose that was becoming really present in Jay's career. And then when he goes out of his way to inflate his album sales with a Samsung smartphone packing deal and adds a really irrelevant music streaming service to his list of assets, he really becomes a harder character to sympathize with. Cue 444 though, and Jay comes out with an album that goes against his current grain. Gone is the overproduced sound of his last few albums, and here's a new album with a lot simpler production and a lot of sample-based beats. With the entire album helmed by No ID, this project has a much rootsier feel. Much of the album is introspective in nature. It's not so much focused on the inflation of Jay-Z, it instead does a lot to build up what little we know about Jay as both a father and as a husband. No ID has stated he wanted to use live instrumentation and mix that with some samples from some of Jay's favorite artists like Nina Simone and Stevie Wonder to create an environment that would expose a more personal side for Jay. And this is really the difference between 444 and a lot of Jay's other albums. It feels like a much more personal and solitary project where the rhymes are the center stage of the show. I think the cover art, with its very stark and minimal design, is definitely a direct reflection of that mission statement. The only text on the cover is a large print of the title and some smaller text that is a declaration that this is his 13th studio album. This is pretty much a clear signal that this album is trying to both document and preserve the legacy of Jay-Z. The track with the most impact is definitely the title track. Supposedly written and recorded at literally 4:44 a.m., this track serves as an emotional canvas for some of Jay's deeper regrets. To be more specific, regrets involving both his marriage and his fatherhood. The track opens with this really sweeping Hannah Williams sample that only gets more grandiose as Jay just starts dropping bars about how I apologize, often womanize, which really make the track feel anything but disingenuous. Jay gets even more vulnerable on the opening track, Kill Jay-Z, which is almost like a diss track against himself. Both songs feature Jay removing the normal veil of the invincible businessman and gangster, exposing a much less perfect image. They address his infidelity to the beat of all the tabloid stories about elevator fights with Solange and Becky's with good hair that came out in the wake of Beyonce's last album, Lemonade. Another standout song is Smile, which is one of the more feel-good tracks on the album. In my opinion, this track would have been better placed at the end of the album rather than at the beginning, as it serves as more of a focal point of self-acceptance after all the confessional tracks across the album. The song even ends with a very touching poem from Jay-Z's mother, who Jay reveals has come out as a lesbian on the track after 60-something years. However, the album isn't solely focused on giving a portrait of the psyche of Jay-Z, it's also a platform for Jay to express his opinions on a lot of current issues. The Story of OJ was a track that I thought was even more thought-provoking because it covered such a wide range of topics compared to just Jay's personal struggles. Scored by a beautiful Nina Simone sample and some really meditative piano keys, the beat on this song is easily my favorite. Even the hook I thought was really interesting, as Jay makes this mutual connection between black people on all levels of society as he talks about this shared sense of marginalization that they all feel. I even really liked what Jay did on the music video of this song, where he takes a lot of black stereotypes from early 1930s cartoons and combines them with the stereotypes that he portrays on the hook. His first verse basically reads like an advice hotline for drug dealers looking to turn their illegal bank into more tangible assets. Now, this kind of stuff in the song initially didn't make sense to me at first because I felt like Jay was taking his usual shrewdness to almost arrogant levels, especially the line where he says his discography is $1 million worth of game, only worth the price of a $9.99 title subscription, of course. But the real overarching point of the song is really deeper than just some advice about how to make money off of paintings and pre-gentrified property. Jay's essentially preaching for his people to try and reach financial freedom in order to better their own community themselves. The track is some of him at his best because he just lays down so many interesting quotes that really breathe his own sense of personality. One of my favorite bars from the whole record is the line where he talks about rappers getting advanced loans of money that they still have to pay back later. He says, "Y'all on the gram hold money over here. There's a disconnect. We don't call that money over here." That's a really cool double entendre because it shows how rappers are obsessed with showing off other people's money with their phones, but to Jay there's a disconnect there because he can just show off his own money. The corniest bar on the record, though, definitely goes to a line from the song Family Feud. Jay says here that he could call himself the realest rapper, but that would be like calling himself the tallest midget. This is basically this album's equivalent of that dumb line from his verse on Monster, and that line about cake, 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 cake on the song Pound Cake. You know what I'm talking about. He then uses his trademark laugh and says, "That's not politically correct. Fuck it, I guess." This line is pretty much the fakest thing on an album that's deliberately trying not to be fake. This song is not without merit though, as I really liked what No ID did with a lot of Beyonce's vocals on this song. There's even an interesting verse on this song where Jay calls out some of the people in the industry, like those who dogged on the rapper Young Thug for wearing a feminine nose ring just the same as Tupac would have. Then you have the song Moonlight, where a sample of Lauryn Hill on the song Fuji La is mixed with Jay's own hook where he talks about how everyone is stuck in La La Land. This is both a Lauryn Hill callback and a stab at the Oscars. There's also callouts of other people on the album, from everyone to Kanye West, to even Prince's lawyer, who Jay feels has wronged Prince by making deals with his masters and selling tours at Paisley Park. Kanye in particular is mentioned several times, from a dig at his 30 Hours bar where he talks about doing all chests and no legs, to even Jay writing him off as insane after his 20-minute rant in the St. Pablo tour. The song Bam even uses the same sample that Kanye used on the song Famous and throws it in with a really show-stopping feature from Damian Marley. At the end of the day though, all these references and callouts kind of make the album more susceptible to feeling dated and aren't really as interesting upon repeat listens. Jay is acknowledging his age on this album, and it really shows in both negative and positive ways. The sense of old age and introspection here comes at a loss of the brilliant charisma and spitfire flows that made Jay's more classic work so addictive. The instrumentals, while very ear-catching, can get repetitive at times, and usually exist underneath of Jay's raps. Despite being my favorite album of his since American Gangster, it sits about one step below his older material in terms of greatness and replayability, and for that reason it sits at about a 3.5 out of 5 for me. That's about all for today, so here's an outro.